made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia.
Everything the royal machine ever did to isolate her was now backfiring, backing them into a corner. Right at this moment, look at the two young boys walking with their heads bowed on the freezing asphalt streets of London. Pause for a second and ask yourself what truly happened behind those pitch-black veils and those suffocatingly solemn hymns. Billions around the world wept in front of their TV screens in September on 1997, convinced they were witnessing a grand farewell. But the truth is, what unfolded at Westminster Abbey that day was not a funeral. It was a battlefield, a war without gunfire, yet fiercely fought between cold political compromises and a tsunami of raw human emotion. Why did a global fashion icon have to wear a borrowed dress? Why did the royals use two agonizingly grieving children as political weapons? And what secret was sealed forever beneath a layer of lead weighing over 1/4 of a ton? What would you do if the person you loved most was stripped of even the right to rest in peace, like a normal human being? Let time freeze at the exact moment the 8 Welsh guards strained to take their first steps. Don't look at their outward solemnity. Look at the beads of sweat breaking out, soaking through their bright red tunics. People thought they were bracing themselves against the weight of a historical event. But no, it was the cruel physical weight of centuries-old protocols. That oak coffin was lined with a massive layer of lead inside, weighing over 250 kilograms. Every drop of molten lead, every strike of the hammer, every boundary sealed shut. Lead lining is not merely a royal ritual. It is a harsh biological requirement to completely seal the remains, turning the coffin into an impenetrable time capsule. The royal machine, the system that once craved control over her every step in life, now wanted to imprison her eternally in a suffocating metal box, never to be touched by sunlight again. But try closing your eyes. Pierce through that oak and cold lead to look inside. A gut-wrenchingly agonizing contrast reveals itself. The Queen of Hearts, the woman who could walk into any luxury boutique in the world, lay there in a temporarily borrowed black woolen dress by designer Catherine Walker. A dress she had ordered just weeks prior, never fitted, never paid for. A dress meant for new beginnings, now transformed into the shroud of an unfinished life. And the most bitter realization is what she held in her hands. No scepter, no jewels. The hands that once embraced HIV patients were now crossed over her chest, tightly clutching a humble rosary, a gift from Mother Teresa. Hidden deep within the folds of that borrowed dress was a crumpled photograph. It was a picture of William and Harry, a tiny keepsake she carried with her so constantly that the paper's creases had worn thin. The most powerful crown in the world. The most precarious, lonely figure in the world. Hundreds of kilos of ceremonial lead could not crush the truth. Before being a stripped princess, she was simply a mother. A mother forced to leave her children forever, taking only a crumpled piece of paper into eternity. How much would you hurt if the only possession you could take from a magnificent dynasty was the paper-printed silhouette of the children you bore? Every dynasty is built on a foundation of silence, but the silence of Buckingham Palace during those autumn days in 1997 took the shape of a razor-sharp blade. It didn't cut into flesh, it slashed straight into the faith of humanity. In every corner of London, the air thickened. Millions poured into the streets weeping, lighting candles. The senses of those present were suffocated by a chilling scent, the cloying, nauseatingly sweet smell of millions of white lilies and roses beginning to decay. That scent was the physical embodiment of an agony so immense that the royal system didn't know how to handle it. The entirety of Britain was screaming, but behind the gold-gilded iron gates of Buckingham Palace, the heartless machine was still measuring every millimeter of protocol. The flagpole atop the palace reached into the gray sky bare and glaringly empty. No flag flew at half-mast. The argument from the gray suits in the palace was as ice-cold as a verdict Diana was divorced. Diana had been stripped of the Royal Highness style. According to centuries of strict rules, she was just an ordinary citizen. The outward majesty of the royals now exposed their inner cruelty. They were more willing to protect a dry line in a rulebook than to bow to the genuine grief of billions. They confined her in a gilded prison while she lived. They stripped her of her title when she yearned for freedom. And now, as she lay dead, they used those very same rules to deny her standing. The Queen remained at Balmoral, closed off in family silence, leaving the public to stand in the London cold with agonizing questions. Where is our Queen? Where is our flag? The splendor of marble cannot conceal the poverty of compassion. Let this truth sink in. When a system values procedure over people, it ceases to be a symbol of nobility. It becomes a soul-crushing machine. Karma has never spared anyone, not even those who wear crowns. What this system once did to Diana was now being brutally repeated on her own flesh and blood. In life, the radiant smile of 19-year-old Diana Spencer was used as the perfect smokescreen to cover up a marriage that was dead on arrival. They used her to polish their image. They forced her to smile for the cameras while her soul shattered. That is raw agony. And now, as the oak coffin slowly rolled through the streets of London, the machine once again needed a shield. But this time, the shield was made from the flesh and bone of two children. Earl Charles Spencer, the princess's brother, vehemently opposed it. He called the plan bizarre and cruel. How could anyone force two newly orphaned boys to bear their most profound private grief before 2 billion watching eyes globally? But the government and the palace had another calculation. The atmosphere at the time was boiling over. Public fury at the royal family's coldness had reached its absolute peak. Secret reports indicated that if the royals walked behind the coffin alone, they would likely be booed, jeered at, or even pelted with objects by the crowd. And thus, the human shield strategy was deployed. They knew full well no one, no matter how furious, could bear to throw stones or shout abuse when looking at two young boys trailing their mother's coffin. Look at 15-year-old William and 12-year-old Harry. Do not listen to the excuses of royal duty. Look at their body language. Young Harry kept his head bowed to the tarmac. His small hands, hidden behind his black suit jacket, were clasped so tightly that his knuckles turned stark white. His shoulders were hunched rigid, bearing the weight of a trembling monarchy, yet absolutely not a single tear was permitted to escape his eyes. Every beat of the drum, every heavy dragging footstep, every camera flash blinking like a knife slashing at the children's minds. She had once been used as a human shield for a deceptive marriage. Now her sons were turned into living shields to protect the image of an empire. How enraged would you be if the agony of losing your mother was turned into a PR crisis management tool? All oppression, even draped in velvet, will eventually breed rebellion. As the coffin entered the solemn, hushed expanse of Westminster Abbey, the air was so thick you could almost touch it. Every glance, every gesture from the royals and guests had been pre-programmed. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be silent. Until Earl Charles Spencer stepped up to the pulpit, the world held its breath. Standing before the most powerful family in Britain, Spencer used no sword, no violence. He drew the most formidable weapon the weak can possess, the truth. His voice rang out, restrained at first, but soon distinct and razor-sharp, tearing right through the Abbey's artificial atmosphere. He did not just eulogize his sister. He dropped a truth bomb right in the middle of the sanctuary. He openly called Diana the most hunted person of the modern age, pointing directly at the ruthless media. But the fatal blow was aimed squarely at those sitting motionless in the front rows. Spencer boldly vowed before the world that the Spencer family, her true bloodline, would protect William and Harry. That he would never allow the souls of those two boys to be immersed by duty and tradition, the way the palace had done to their mother.
Every word, every syllable, every biting sarcasm, the weapon of the mighty, the suppression of power, was now utterly defeated by the weapon of the weak flesh and blood love, and a chilling transparency. For the first time in the history of British royal funerals, a eulogy was not used to comfort, but to indict. Spencer stripped away the machine's facade, affirming that Diana needed no glittering title to generate her particular brand of magic. She was greater than any rule they tried to impose on her. Let time stand still at the exact moment the final syllable of Earl Spencer's eulogy faded. In those 3 fleeting seconds, all of Westminster Abbey sank into a dead silence. A suffocating quiet, tight as a bowstring, where every speck of dust in the air seemed to turn to stone. The royals sat motionless. The security detail was stunned. Everyone was waiting for an invisible punishment to strike the man who dared to publicly challenge the throne. The air completely froze.
But then from outside the massive marble walls of the Abbey, an unprecedented event in history occurred. It began as just the timid clapping of a few hands. Then, in the blink of an eye, it spread like a raging wildfire across a dry savanna. Tens of thousands of people standing on the streets of London, who had been listening to the eulogy over loudspeakers, suddenly started applauding in unison. The sound surged like a tsunami, deafening powerful crashing right against the giant ironwood doors and flooding inside the Abbey. Security guards were bewildered, exchanging intensely nervous glances, their hands fumbling for their radios. They were trained to counter bullets, to counter riots, but no security manual ever taught them how to stop human empathy. For the first time in centuries of British royal history, the crowd inside the Abbey began to stand up. They cast aside their protocol rulebooks. They shattered the barriers of restraint. They joined the applause.
It wasn't simply the sound of praise. Every round of applause, every layer of barriers, every century of protocol, it was all crumbling. It was the sound of righteous fury fused with unconditional love. It was the moment when raw humanity crushed cold majesty. And the collapse of that wall of rules didn't stop at the Abbey. Stretch time out a bit more, rewind to the moment the cortege began leaving Buckingham Palace. Look at the Queen, the most powerful monarch in Britain, the representative of an institution that had never bowed to anyone without a crown. Standing before the iron gates, the Queen was unprotected by bulletproof glass. She stood there, fragile in her black mourning attire. As the lead-lined coffin passed by, the Queen slowly lowered her chin, her eyes downcast in a bow. An action that lasted a mere 2 seconds. 2 fleeting seconds, yet it toppled 1,000 years of history. The pride of the monarchy defeated by the truth of human emotion. The Queen had realized silence sometimes does not reflect majesty. It reflects cruelty. She had to strip off her monarch's armor to return to being a grandmother, a flesh and blood human being in the face of humanity's shared grief.
When the television cameras turned off, the world thought they knew the end of the story. A beautiful press release was issued. Diana would rest at the Spencer family's Althorpe estate on a tranquil little island in the middle of a crystal-clear, ornamental lake named the Oval. Weeping willows casting their shadows, 36 trees, symbolizing her 36 short years of life, a pristine white memorial. A perfect fairy tale to pacify the public and soothe the media.
But how agonizing would it be to know that your loved one, even after passing away, would continue to be turned into a global tourist attraction? Earl Spencer knew it well. The royal family knew it well too. They anticipated that wherever Diana was buried would become a pilgrimage site, robbing her of eternal peace. And so, a historical deception, steeped in familial love, was orchestrated. Let the darkness of the Great Brington countryside envelop your mind. Night fell, concealing the ruthless paparazzi lenses. Many local witnesses whispered about the growling engines of heavy machinery operating overnight at St. Mary's Church, the site of the Spencer family vault for centuries. The stone floor of the church was said to have been lifted and resealed in the haste of the dark. Connect the facts together. Why would a body buried in the damp soil of an island require a 250-kilogram, lead-lined coffin, something strictly designed for vault burials to prevent gas leaks? The breathtakingly brutal truth slowly emerges. That beautiful island might very well be the perfect decoy, a staged setting so the world has a place to lay flowers and shed tears. And that lead-lined coffin, it was quietly lowered deep into Mother Earth under the cover of night, hidden beneath the cold stones of St. Mary's. No cameras, no crowds, no strict palace protocols. There, in absolute solitude, the Spencer family snatched their daughter back from the hands of the world. They deceived humanity, betrayed informational transparency, all in exchange for one single thing: the absolute protection of a soul that had endured too much bruising from the spotlight. It was the most profound, instinctive protection a family could offer their own flesh and blood. When the iron gates of the Althorpe estate closed, they didn't just conclude a funeral. They closed an era where the coldness of royalty could rule over human hearts. What happened on September 6, 1997, was a permanent verdict against lifeless rules. The Windsor machine thought that by locking her in a 250-kilogram, lead-lined coffin, they could imprison her influence as well. But they were wrong. You cannot bury the sun in metal. You cannot extinguish kindness with protocol handbooks. The true legacy of Princess Diana does not lie in massive castles, nor in the stripped title of Royal Highness. Her legacy lies in the fact that she forced a 1,000-year-old dynasty to learn to beat and sync with human suffering. The most powerful crown forces people to bow in fear. But a borrowed black dress, a humble rosary, and a deeply scarred heart brought the world to tears out of respect. Power fades over time, but compassion is immortal. Let this truth haunt your mind. Standing at the boundary between dry, rigid rules designed to protect the collective face and stepping across that line to embrace a shattered human being. If it were you standing before tens of thousands of scrutinizing eyes, would you dare cast aside all safety to stand on the side of sincerity? And now I want to ask you directly. After learning about the flesh and blood shield that forced 2 children to walk in agony after hearing the secret of the lead-lined coffin and the nighttime operations at the St. Mary's vault, do you believe that the symbol of love is truly lying abandoned on that cold island? Or do you believe in the power of kinship, that she is being absolutely protected in her family's vault, eternally free from the eyes of the world? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if this story touched a hidden corner of your heart, because at the end of the day, there are truths heavier than tons of lead, yet they are warmed by our very own human connection. See you again in the next journeys of uncovering history. Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.